Today you're going to be learning how to apply colored pencils on a three-dimensional form. We're also going to be learning how to burnish our colored pencils together. The approach that we're going to be taking today is the approach that I'm expecting you to take in your final colored pencil book cover or illustrated short poem drawing. To begin, we need to go to Schoology and learn about what burnishing is. You're going to find information about burnishing in the CP Technique PDF. So the CP stands for colored pencils. Now let's read through this together. To use the technique successfully, you need to develop a discerning eye for color. A good eye for color is worth striving for. Sometimes this ability seems intuitive, but in more cases than not, it is patiently learned. The ability is to recognize and describe a color, whatever its surroundings in terms of its three dimensions. With this ability, rapid judgments can be made about an existing color's mixture's relevance or usefulness. So for this project, you need to have reference photos that you are looking towards whenever you're coloring your subject matter. You should not be coloring from your mind. You need to be looking at colors in your reference photos to dictate which colored pencils you're going to be using in your final drawing. We're going to scroll down to where it talks about burnishing. The best artist that I believe uses burnishing is Esther Roy. She creates these beautiful colored pencil drawings, and she mainly draws river rocks and highlights the color she's seeing in those rocks to the nth degree, resulting in these beautiful, vibrant, almost very lifelike movement type of drawings. So what is burnishing? When a white colored pencil is useful in adding a glazed surface effect to a drawing or to parts of a drawing. This technique is called burnishing. So how is burnishing done? The burnishing technique is done by applying a white or a similarly light value pencil with heavy pencil pressure over a previously established tonal area. So this means that you have to develop a lot of layers of colored pencil before you would try to burnish your colors together. Out of all the colored pencils, the best for burnishing are white, cream, warm gray very light, and cold gray very light. If you are a cyber student, you only have white. If you are an in-school student, you have the options of grabbing the cream or the grays. Although the original colors become slightly lightened, because of the addition of light valued pigment, the overall effect is of an increase in color brightness and reflectivity as the original tonal hues are masked into the paper surface. This technique can appear to evoke a wet or fluid effect. Burnishing can be integrated into the initial process of drawing, or it can be used as a final step. I recommend using it as a final step because sometimes if you do burnishing too early, you lose the tooth of the paper and it's very hard to layer colors on top of one another later on. The less hue contained in the burnishing pencil, the less the original color will be altered. A white pencil, for example, will burnish a color with less change to that color's hue than will a pencil with a similar value, such as cream, which contains more hue. Remember, hue is color. So below are the effects of burnishing. You're going to have an apparent heightening of intensity in some of the colors. You're going to have a smoothing of overall texture. There will be a general lightening of the values. It gives a drawing a painting quality, and dark tonal values are least affected by the burnishing pencil's colors, while lighter values and single layers are most affected by it. To begin learning how to do that, we first have to begin how we actually use colored pencils. So this colored pencil handout you should have open the entire time you are drawing because you have to follow these directions. So the most important art tip with colored pencil is that when you're drawing, do not think about the subject, only render the color and value changes. Draw what you see, not what you think you see. So once again, you need to have your reference images available so you can draw the colors that you are analyzing in the photos. You're not coloring from your mind. Before drawing, analyze your colors. Which colors do I use? Which colors do I see? What variation of the same colors do I see? What are the underlying colors? If you are a cyber student, your color options are limited. If you are at school, we can build your colored pencil packet as much as you want because you have the access to the other colored pencils in the classroom. Cyber students at home, you are more than welcome to go out and buy additional colored pencils for this project. I only recommend Prismacolored pencils, as that wax-based medium will work best with the Prismacolored pencils you already have. You will want to familiarize yourself with the color characteristics. So what is the colors hue or name that you're using? I recommend that if you have a lot of colors that you're going to be using without your drawing, that you write down other colors that you have, because you might forget which ones you're using in different spots, especially if you're an in-school student and you have like 20 colors for this work. You need to look at how light or dark a color is, so you're choosing the appropriate colored pencil to shade that section. How intense is the color? Is it dull or bright? If something in your drawing is very intense, then you're going to want to find a colored pencil that also shares a similar intensity. After you've familiarized yourself and analyzed the colors that you're seeing in your reference photos, then you're going to collect your colored pencils that match what you've analyzed and familiarized yourself with. So collect all the colors that you see from that analysis stage, and then arrange your collected pencils from light to dark. You're going to apply the pencils from light to dark, but always analyze colors before you put any pressure or any colored pencil down on the paper. And you're going to be working from a light pressure to a hard pressure. So this is the same exact approach we did for our landscape drawing. We pressed really, really lightly with our 2H and 4H pencils, and as we built up to our HB and 2B pencils, we gradually pressed lighter to help put in the darker values. We're taking the same approach with the colored pencils. We're just applying the colored pencils with a slightly different shading technique. And then you always develop your values from light to dark. Same thing with shading with the pencil. We always put the light values down first and the dark values down last. If you want your drawing to look fully three-dimensional, you want to observe your values more carefully than a color that you're seeing or the intensity. If your values are off, or they're not built up to create this three-dimensional form, then your drawing is going to end up looking flat and kind of too simple and elementary in style. So here's a couple colored pencil tips. You want to sharpen your pencil constantly. When you layer colors, they will appear more sharp and clear with a sharp point versus a fuzzy blurred look with a dull point. While you're working with colored pencils, you have to keep that point super sharp because you want the tip of the colored pencil to go into the grooves of the paper. If it's too dull, then it's going to skip over the valleys of the paper, and then you're going to end up getting this granular look because the white of the paper is showing through the colored pencil. So we want to kind of get rid of the tooth of the paper by pressing harder as we build up our layers, so all we're seeing is color, and it almost looks like a painting at the end. You want to use several layers of different colors to build up the values being depicted in the object. And there's a couple purposes of why we layer. So a couple of reasons why we layer is, one, it helps us create a more three-dimensional look, because with every layer that we're adding on, we're constantly looking at the color's value. And so we're slowly building up to these darker values with every consecutive layer. It also helps you slow down by looking at which color is best to put in to make this object look three-dimensional. So one of the easiest ways to darken a color's value is by using that color's complementary color. So if you're going to be shading a red gumball today, you're going to want to shade it probably with a green complementary color, so it helps really pull out the darkness and giving it a nice vibrancy. And also, by layering, you're able to include all of these fun colors, like complementary colors and cooler colors and warmer colors, to pull out the shades and the tints and tones. And while you are building up these layers, they're going to be slowly mixing into one another, getting rid of the tooth of the paper gradually over time, which results in a burnished, painted look. Now you do want to be cautious not to use too many colors. And once again, like I've just stated previously, you want to create more depth and deeper value by using the complementary color sandwich technique, which is if you have a red gumball, you have the red first, you put in the green, then you put the red over top of it again. So that way the red kind of sits the green back into the rest of the form and it looks more cohesive. So let's actually take a second now and look at how we actually draw a shaded gumball. So this is what the colored pencil technique that you're using should look like. You're making these like small little circle marks really close to one another. And as you're drawing, you want to twist your pencil every once in a while because we want to keep the point of our colored pencil really nice and sharp. So if it's not sharp enough, like this is the ideal that we should be working with, is that really nice sharp point, because that then can get into all of the grooves of the paper a lot better. And I'm pressing as light as I can whenever I'm drawing with a colored pencil. So we want to do that with the white, and we're going to put it in where we have this highlighted section right here, right in the middle. Now because we're doing white on white, it's not going to show up. Do not press hard with this first little layer of white just so you can see it. Like it'll show up once we start adding in the extra layers. For this one, this is canary yellow. You only put the yellow in the area that you would be seeing it in your gumball. Because this is such a light value section, it would not be fully appropriate for me to put it in this like darker reddish orange section, because red and orange should just be red and orange. I want to keep this to where I have my lighter values where I'm seeing more of a yellow orange color in there. So I'm going to begin on my edge, and I do need to lighten up my pencil marks because I don't want the pencil to go in and mix with my colored pencil. So sorry that I'm going to lighten that up. It might be hard for you guys to see. But I'm going to very lightly start putting in my yellow colored pencil. I am taking this down around the outside of this gumball because I'm noticing how that intense or that dull area around the edge kind of has like a yellowish quality to it. Press really lightly whenever you're drawing. Don't press too hard. Remember, you're doing small little circular motions that are really close to one another. I don't really want to go over my white because it doesn't look like a yellow orange highlight. It looks very much just like an orange highlight. So I'm going to avoid that section. And I'm just trying to be smart with where I'm putting my color. So I'm going to go in with my orange next. This is my lighter orange that I have. Remember, look how I have a nice fine point. So if you guys have dull pencils, don't feel bad to like get up and sharpen them right now. Like you're going to have a better quality drawing if they're sharp. Now I do want to put this over top of my yellow because I want that yellow to start mixing with my orange. And because this is an orange, I can start carrying this into more of my darker sections, but not too many because it's still a very light orange. Actually, I am going to probably put this everywhere because I think that'll help brighten up my reds. I'm not too focused on pressing harder at all with this, these first layers that we're putting in, we're just kind of mapping in the placement of the color. And then we'll build up the value as we add the darker colors in. For your technique of how you're shading, you're not putting in spirals or big circles. They're just really tight circular motions And that's how you create a nice solid fill. It's not scribbling back and forth. It's just like a circular motion that's really tight upon itself. So you can see how slow this process is. I mean, we're only in the second color and I'm still not quite done yet. So really good colored pencil drawings take time and patience, which is why we have so much time to complete this project. Whenever you guys start doing your final drawing, you're going to want to have this paper handy because you want to use the extra parts of this white paper to experiment layering colors on top of one another. Because this is an experimental technique drawing, I want us to experiment with the different ways we can create lower intensity colors. So I'm using my 20% warm gray, and I'm just going to experiment and start putting this right around the edge of where I'm seeing this dollar color. Now, as I'm shading, I'm looking at my reference photo because the contour of that dollar section changes as it goes around the gumball. So I'm trying to pay attention to the placement of what that area looks like, the contour of what that area looks like, and how it changes throughout the entire gumball itself. So this is why having a really good reference photo is so important, because when we draw what we see, we just make better marks and better choices. Once I've finished shading in with that light gray, I recommend going on to your orange. And because this is the middle value color and we're seeing it everywhere in the gumball, I'm going to be putting this orange over top of everything I've done, including the white. I'm not pressing any harder with this. I'm still putting a nice light value pressure on here. And the reason why you do a circular stroke with a colored pencil is it kind of avoids creating those, sometimes when you shade, the ends of your strokes can be darker. This kind of makes everything a really nice even fill when we do a circular motion like this. And it's good too that we're combining the yellow with the red, because as you guys saw yesterday with the color wheel, wasn't that magical, the color wheel yesterday? Only using red, yellow, and blue, and then you get a whole color wheel from that. I love that. That's so magical. But because we have yellow and red in our layers, that's gonna also help mix this orange and really have it kind of pop out and become quite vibrant. So now that I placed that orange in, I'm gonna go in with my vermilion orange, which is a little bit darker. I'm still gonna put this orange everywhere because this is a fairly dark colored gumball. Like the value of it's fairly dark. So once again, I'm starting to focus more on the value and less on the color and intensities. I really want to get my value correct to make this look as three-dimensional as possible. On this step, I am going to press, just beginning a little bit harder on my darker value sections, just so I can start pulling out that three-dimensional form a little bit more. So with this pale vermilion color, I'm just going to start pressing just a little bit harder where my core shadow is placed. Just to begin making my colored pencil have a little bit more depth. When you're drawing and shading a shiny surface like a gumball, it's very important to put in all of the value fluctuations and highlights that you're seeing. That's what's going to make your drawing look quite realistic. Next, I'm going to go to the red. For instance, my color looks really muddy on the screen up there, but I promise you it looks much oranger on my paper. I don't know why it does that. That screen is, I need to get a new light bulb for that. So I'm noticing right now with this red that it's actually a little too dark, this crimson red. I need to find a brighter looking red. So this is a good part, like where like as you're putting in a layer, you're like, oh man, like I had the wrong intensity red, and go shopping and find something else that would work maybe a little bit better for your own drawing. Yeah. Oh, do you want to use my? Yeah. Do you want my charger right now? Oh, it's okay. Okay. Guys, there's also this container. Oh gosh, this is a mess. container has boxes of other colors. So we can pull that out too. I'll clean that off so it's easier to access. Now here's the thing, after you put in your darkest color, so like after this red, I'm gonna be putting in my blue just on like the bottom part of this shaded area. Then we're going to repeat this same process. We're gonna go back in with the white, and then the yellows, the orange, the gray, the reds, and then every like time we do like a second full set of layer of the colors, you're gonna press a little bit harder and a little bit harder to begin getting rid of the tooth of the paper. So you start getting a more burnished look. There's even some areas in like the dollar outer edge that looks like it's a little bit darker. So I'm taking this red and I'm going in there as well. And as I'm adding in this blue, I just don't think it's the best. It like looks too dark. So I'm just gonna leave it this one time, and then I'm not gonna use it again. Okay, so now that I have that first layer in, once you get done with your first layer of colors, start putting in your second. And this is when you can start blending a little bit harder and really building up the burnishing now. I'm not gonna go too much in with my yellow. Like I don't want it to be I really want it to show like the orange. So actually, like as I'm putting this yellow back in, it's starting to make it look too of a yellow orange. So I might just put that yellow in once, and I'm not going to include it in this second layer of color. So, you know, kind of subtract things as you're working. Take things out and don't use them if it's altering the value and the color of what you have in front of you. That dull area around the edge of the gumball also looks like it's a tint. So we create tints by adding in white. So once I build up that orange a little bit more, I'm going to go back in with that white to create more of that tintish quality. So, you know, as you work, there's lots of things you have to ask yourself, like what type of color am I seeing there? Is it a tint? Is it a shade? Is it a very intense pure hue? Is it a warmer version of a color or a cooler version of the color? All of these, you know, internal questions we ask ourselves help dictate our color choices and what we end up putting onto our form to make it look three-dimensional. So the red that I really like with this one right now is this carmine red. That seems to be the best reddish orange that I found. It's more like, almost looks like a pinkish one, but it blends really, really well with the previous colors that I've put in. Are you guys understanding the overall gist of this process? Is anyone confused by any steps? This does not, what you're seeing on the screen does not look like what it's looking on my paper. So like on the screen it looks muddy. On my paper it looks like a gumball. I don't know what's happening.